FM.
Tonight, President John Dramani Mahama talks tough 1 week after his inauguration as he assures the people of Bawku and its environs of doing everything within his might as president to restore peace to the area.
So today is exactly 1 week when I was sworn in at the Black Star Square, and it's my first major assignment outside Accra. And so I decided to come and assure you that we're going to work very hard to make sure that we bring peace back to Bawku.
Details as he is said to announce key security appointment this week, whose task will include permanently ending the decade-old Bawku conflict.
And to let you know that I am apprised of the issue, I'm going to deal with it, and I can assure you, have trust in myself and this administration that by the grace of God, peace is going to come back. Permanent peace is going to come back to Bawku.
So what needs to be done to achieve this objective? We speak to people with a vast understanding of the Bawku issue to get some sense of what actually needs to be done here on Top Story. Top Story, as always, is brought to you by Telecel, connecting energies and holy insecticide spray and coil. Enjoy a holy sleep. Now, tonight, President John Dramani Mahama is taking a tough stand 1 week after his inauguration as President of the Republic of Ghana, as he assures the people of Bawku and its environs of doing everything within his might to restore peace to the area. He said to announce key security appointment this week, whose task will include permanently ending the decades-old Bawku conflict. The announcement is coming on a day the president met with the heads of state security agencies before he left to Bawku to begin his peace mission. Addressing residents in Bawku, President John Dramani Mahama assured them of his commitment to restoring peace in the area. Now, during his campaign, he made this one of his top priorities, and he went there to assure that once he's president now, he will ensure this comes to pass. Now, his visit comes on the heels of a violent clash last week, which claimed 2 lives, raising the death toll to 41 since the conflict was resurfaced in October last year. Regional correspondent Albert Sorry summarizes the situation in the following report.
The Bawku chieftaincy conflict between the Kusasi and Mamprusi has a long, complex history dating back to the 1930s. The recent resurgence of the conflict, starting in 2021, has resulted in hundreds of deaths and had devastating consequences for the town's economy and residents. The once thriving town in the Upper East region has been reduced to a shadow of its former self, with a dusk to dawn curfew and a ban on motorcycle riding imposed by the government. The conflict has severely impacted key sectors such as health, education, and commerce. Many businesses have closed due to safety concerns, and schools struggle to remain open. Despite the challenges, Bawku successfully held a peaceful election last December. However, sporadic violent incidents continue to occur, indicating that the conflict is far from over. Past governments have attempted to manage the situation, but their efforts have been insufficient to bring lasting peace. This new John Mahama-led NDC government will face the daunting task of resolving the conflict. It remains to be seen, however, what new measures this government will adopt.
But sorry, with that particular summary of what the situation is like in Bawku, Presidential Affairs correspondent Maxwell Agbagba joins me in studio with update from John Mahama's peace mission to Bawku and its environs. Maxwell, first tell us the purpose for this particular visit and what John Mahama has been telling residents of Bawku.
Well, earlier this morning, we had the advisory, the media advisory from the spokesperson of the president, Felix Kwasi, and he stated that the president is determined to resolve the decades-old conflict in Bawku and will use this visit to engage the conflict factions and key stakeholders to promote dialogue to achieving lasting peace. And that's essentially what the president has been doing today since he touched down, in Bawku sometime around 11 a.m. This morning. So he first met with the overlord of Bawku. They had a closed door meeting, and then he outside, to address the residents of the Bawku community who had gathered, to listen to him. Key amongst the things that he talked about the fact that on the campaign trail, he promised that if he's elected president, he's going to ensure that he permanently deals with the Bawku conflict, and this is one of the major steps that he's taking to permanently deal with the situation. He said the residents for the past 4 years have been living under stress as a result of the conflict there, and is hoping to bring permanent solution to this.
If you remember, I came here to seek the blessings of my father for the election, and God granted our heart's desire, and I got elected. And so my first mission was to come and say thank you to him. Again, during the campaign, I stated that if God granted our desire and I was elected president, bringing peace to Bawku was going to be one of my number one priorities. So today is exactly 1 week when I was sworn in at the Black Star Square, and it's my first major assignment outside Accra. And so I decided to come and assure you that we're going to work very hard to make sure that we bring peace back to Bawku. I remember when I was president, Bawku and surrounding areas were very peaceful and work was going on, people were going about their duties. It's sad that this situation has occurred again. And I know that for the last 3 years, you have not been able to sleep. You've been living under stress. And so the priority of our government will be to bring peace back to Bawku so that everybody can go about his duties without fear of harassment. We want to assure you.
Now, Maxwell, as part of effort to bring long-lasting peace to Bawku, he's been talking about some appointment that he'll be making this week.
Yeah.
Of course, he's saying that their topmost priority will include to bring peace to Bawku. He's been providing some details.
Yes. So he says this week he's going to make key security appointments, and he mentioned the Ministry of Defense is one of them. The Interior Ministry is one of them. He also mentioned the National Security Coordinator. He also mentioned BNI Director, and quite a number of security positions that he says he's going to make key appointment, to. And their major task will be to permanently, one of their major tasks, will be to permanently deal with the situation at Bawku.
I want to assure you that we're putting in place the various appointments so that we can have ministers and other officials who are responsible for the security to take charge. And so within this week, we will do the appointments of the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Interior, the National Security Advisor, the National Security Coordinator, the BNI Director, and all the others. And when these appointments are made, I'm going to charge them to make Bawku one of the number one priorities that they attend and deal with. And so I'll appeal to you to exercise patience, exercise restraint, and to let you know that I am apprised of the issue. I'm going to deal with it, And I can assure you, have trust in myself and this administration that by the grace of God, peace is going to come back. Permanent peace is going to come back to Bawku. And so, as my younger brother said, from here we'll continue to Nalerigu to meet the Nairi too and deliver a message to him. We cannot live in a country where our people don't feel safe. Our people must feel safe to travel wherever they want at whatever time and not have people shooting at them. And so you can be sure that we'll deal with all these situations so that we all can have the peace that we need in order that our traditional areas can progress. When I entered, my father reminded me about his request, and you all know what request that was. My assurance is we need peace to be established because some of the processes that you must go through for what your hearts are desiring require that the area is peaceful. But you can be sure that I haven't forgotten about it, and I want to thank you very much.
Now, before the president left for Bawku this morning, he
Yeah.
met with heads of state security agencies.
Yeah.
One of the issues that came up at that particular meeting was chieftaincy disputes in Ghana. Tell us more.
Yeah, so those present at that meeting, we have the Chief of Defense Staff who was there, the Inspector General of Police. We also have the head of the Ghana Immigration Service. We have the Fire Service boss. All of them were present, at that particular meeting. And there he mentioned that chieftaincy disputes is one major security concern that we need to pay attention to. And he had mentioned it, he mentioned it actually earlier, that was yesterday, during a meeting with the National House of Chiefs. He mentioned that after his election, all the security briefings that he's received, one major issue, security issue that keeps coming up is the issue of chieftaincy disputes.
This last election has cemented our reputation as a leading democracy in Africa, and a good part of the thanks go to you, the security services, who have maintained the peace. We still have threats to our peace that we must continue to look at internally and externally. Internally, to do with chieftaincy disputes and some incidents of armed robbery and things like that. Externally, to do with the threats on our northern borders. And so we cannot let our vigilance down. There should be no vacuum. And so you must all continue to work, as the CDS said, zealously to make sure that there's no breach of the peace in the country. And so I want to thank you for all the work you're doing. We're working hard to set up the Council of State so that we can start to put the controlling boards of all the services and all the government parastatals in place. And so once we have the Armed Forces Council and the Prisons Council and all of them set up, all your service councils, we're sure that we'll begin to look at how to manage things in respect of any outstanding issues that exist. But in the meantime, I expect you all to work very closely together like you've been doing and continue to keep the country safe for all of us. And so I want to thank you for attending to our call at quite short notice, and to ask you to continue to work in the interests of the people of Ghana.
So that was President John Dramani Mahama speaking at a meeting with the heads of the state security agencies. Now, from Bawku, the president moved to Nalerigu in the northeast region to continue with his peace mission there. This is top story. Let's go on to the phone lines now and speak to international relations expert and security analyst, Professor Vladimir Enchidan. So, Prof, grateful to you for joining us here. First off, what do you make of this peace mission by President John Mahama?
And good evening to your listeners. I'm really proud of the president. I'm extremely proud, not because it's my field, but prioritizing security and linking it up with our democracy is very, very important. Most of the areas where you have instability is because internal insecurity has created the platform for derailing democracy. So this mission is very, very important. And he's talking to people who must be involved in the liquidation of this insecurity situation in those areas that he's visiting. So I'm very proud that he's prioritizing security as the base and fundamental pivot of our democracy, and that is very good.
And what do you anticipate will be the impact of this visit by the president?
It's going to be a great impact because at least the people within the area, and no security issue is resolved without the people involved. Now that they see him as a person who has just sat on the throne and visited, they will themselves realize that here is a person who is putting more efforts into what others have done. That he's come there personally himself and is asking them to realize that insecurity is not part of our democracy. It cannot be part of our democracy. Here is it again that he has spoken to security agencies, the top echelon of the security agencies. He's spoken to people who have been involved in the resolution of anything over there. And I believe that it will sink in. It will have a great impact on the people and all those agencies that need to work towards the liquidation of insecurity situation in Bawku area.
Prof, do stay with me. Let me bring in Dr. Victor Doke. He is lecturer at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center and a security analyst as well. Doctor, I'm grateful to you for joining us here. Now, the Bawku issue has been on the table for quite some time. The president has been there today. What do you think must be done in order to bring that lasting solution the president is looking for?
Thank you very much and Happy New Year. First of all, let's go back a bit. When the late John Evans Atamas was president, we had the now President Mahama as a vice, where he was tasked to go to Bawku when there was, violent confrontations between the two conflict actors. Now, that was his engagement with them. And then when he became president, also he had, some engagement with the conflict actors. So the president has had foreknowledge, knows a bit about the historical antecedents of this conflict. And then when he was vice president and then president, had some mechanisms to curb the armed confrontations to ensure that the proximate factors that enable the violent confrontations were kept somewhat. Now, you are rest assured that with what he is doing now, the first trip inland to the area makes us or gives us an impression that he wants to find a lasting solution to this conflict. That one, economically, is draining the country. Two, that is making it, probably possible for armed elements to have a way to infiltrate from the northern side. So, with what has to be done, one, he's stated he has to appoint, with regards to the various security heads that he mentioned, it has to be done quickly. Now, these personalities who have to be appointed have to have some foreknowledge, the skill with regards to chieftaincy conflict, i.e., in particular, Bawku, so that they can bring out the solutions that the two parties would agree to, but not to be forced on them. You keep the personnel there to enforce the curfews, then you engage in sustained engagements with the two sides. Now, let me state categorically clear that the Bawku Ethnic Peace Committee has been somewhat redundant for some time now. Immediately he appoints those security heads, the Minister for Chieftaincy, they should ensure through the National Peace Council that the Bawku Ethnic Peace Committee is revived again. This homegrown policy or homegrown institution is what has been leading somewhat negotiations between the two sides. Now, the committee consists of all members representing the ethnic groups. If you do all these appointments, you put everything in place without the committee, you are likely to face challenges. Get the committee working, resource the committee, and then with the appointments, you get a holistic stakeholder, multi-stakeholder consultations for ideas with regards to finalizing the conflict. For the other aspects with regards to the rival chief in there, when the committee sits, when all the security heads are appointed, there will be a solution to that incident. So we are talking about two different things here. The rival chief, his presence, and then looking at resolving or addressing the conflict finally.
Well, quite some insights there. Let me bring in Professor Vladimir Introdan. So, yeah, Prof, you've heard the issue about chieftaincy dispute. The president
Yes.
has acknowledged that, and it looks like the Bawku conflict is around the same issue. How then can the president, taking cognizance of the fact that this is about chieftaincy dispute, should he approach this to get that desired result he's looking for? Because it's about people who disagree in terms of who should become a chief of an area.
Well, the Bawku issue is not one of chieftaincy alone. My advice to the president is that, yes, my colleague is talking about the committee to be revived for it to work. No amount of witchery or prayers can make a committee successful unless we understand the conflict better and the causal effect. The main problem in Bawku is multi-causal, in the sense that it is politics, it is history, narration of history, it is chieftaincy, it is land. It's a complex nature of the thing. And if you don't understand the pillars that are propping the conflict, you may make a mistake of just setting up committees and they go and talk and talk and talk and talk. We need to remove the pillars one by one. And the committee must understand what is propping the conflict. If you do the conflict analysis properly, you see, is it the history that has not been properly located or narrated? Let's look at that seriously. Is it chieftaincy? Let's look at that. And remove them one by one. For me, one of the biggest props, and it is the biggest in the Bawku issue, is politics, Ghanaian politics. Underlying all the Bawku problems is also politics. So let us not just say it is chieftaincy. The chieftaincy is there, yes, but politics is exacerbating the situation. The president must be apprised of all these problems so that he knows where to tackle and what to do from the beginning. Ab initio, if he doesn't understand it, we have in the past sent soldiers. That is the kinetic approach to conflict. Their presence dies the conflict a little, and it is resurrected when they are away. Let us now be more comprehensive. Let us understand the conflict and remove the pillars one by one. And I think in this, the president must also rely on experts. He must rely on think tanks who understand conflict analysis. He must rely on the eminent persons, the track two kind of diplomacy. The Santini did very well, Utumpo did very well in the Dabon situation. Can we have a similar situation aided strongly by research and by proper analysis? Because it is the improper analysis of the Bawku situation that has caused it to be intractable.
But from the moves he's done now, I mean, he's been vice president before, he's been president before, this issue has been there. But from what he's done now, do you have the sense of belief that he may succeed this time around?
If all that I'm saying is well understood by him, he's got the experience, I understand. He's got the stature, he's got the respect. But respect is respect. You go there and the people will say, yes, sir, turn round. And you realize what happens. So I'm saying that it must be comprehensive now. If you want to take away a stump, you remove it from the roots, and then there will be no stump anymore. And that's all I'm alluding to.
So let me bring in now Stephen Asamoah Boateng. He is the immediate past chieftaincy ministry minister, and he's joined us on the line. But in the last concluding part of your era, you made the Bawku chieftaincy issues one of the major things you were dealing with. So you have some experience. What would you tell the current president and his government to do in order to get the results that we're all looking for as a state?
Thank you very much. Indeed, it wasn't even at the concluding part of my term. Bawku was my first my first place I went. Immediately I was sworn in. I was sworn in on the 4th of April 2023. On the 5th or 6th, I was in Nairobi on the Bawku conflict. From there, a week later, I went to Bawku proper. And I made it quite clear it was the priority of my ministry to try and resolve it and bring lasting peace. Indeed, at some point I was moving so smoothly, getting all parties involved in talking. Indeed, I went to my own old man father, Abugrago Azigri Azoka, the second of Bawku, the Bawku Naba. I also went to the Nairi and also went to the palace, and I got the two talking to me. It was difficult before I came into the ministry for them to share their innermost thoughts, but they were talking, and that gave me the opportunity to present a paper to cabinet, and for cabinet to find a solution that takes the politics out of it. Because that's how I found out that politically there were undertones, and so me being a politician as well, but we must take ourselves and give it back to the chiefs. And so we then handed over the responsibility of finding the peace led by Otumfo, the Asantehene, Otumfo to the second. So that's how it was started. And it was moving very smoothly. Indeed, one of the things that I managed to do is to bring in all, apart from the chiefs who came in to lead, even the undertones where I saw the political undertones, I was engaging all sides. Indeed, two people I talked to quite often was Mahama Yarga, who is a young brother of mine from the NDC. Came to my office. We had a very good chat. I also spoke to my own old brother, Avoka. And so politically, I took us out of the partisanship and we were engaging ourselves. So that's what the advice I'll give to the current president. That Bawku is so sensitive, the Bawku matter is very sensitive, emotional. And so politically, if we want to do something as politicians, it must be undertone, but engage everybody. But really, I would suggest that it continues with the chiefs, led by, you might want to change it, but Otumfo has a very good advantage of knowing the history and everything, and maybe bring in the other traditional authorities like the Yebonra and also the Yana. Because I spoke to both, and they were talking to the two factions behind the scenes. So that's how I would approach it, or I would advise if they want to have a lasting peace.
Your work as the minister, from that experience, what do you think this government should not be doing in trying to deal with the Bawku issue?
First of all, don't appoint a native of the Bawku or the Kusak to be the regional minister. That's number one. Don't do it. It's emotional subject, and the native always, if you are not careful, have some emotions with it. And I liken that to be the Dagbon issue. If you remember the Dagbon crisis when it was spilling out, the former president J. Kufuor appointed a blonde man, Kweku Debra, and it's Kweku Debra, if you remember.
Yeah. Unfortunate, but that is the former chieftaincy minister Stephen Asamoah Boateng, who is sharing with us, what he did as a minister and what he thinks this government should not do, and what he thinks they should do in order to win it. So I have you back. You were talking about appointment, and you mentioned someone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as I said, Kweku Debra from Bono Ahavo region went to Tamale and began the process of healing. So that's number one. And then if you remember, he was followed by Sadiq Abubakar, who was a Dagomba, who was a Gonja. So that helped to settle the Dagomba, the Dagbon crisis. Similarly, with the Bawku issue, I would advise no native is taking there now in this sensitive matter. Number two is, as I said earlier, is to talk to the political side so that everybody stays out. It should never be a political issue. It's a chieftaincy and land matter, and this matter had traveled to the courts. It's gone to the chiefs. So there are people on both sides who are intransigent. There are compromises in the middle. So we need to find a middle ground, and the truth must be told, and people who are courageous and bold must come in. And so the actors should still in the background advise if there's a need for us to get involved, but led by the key paramount chiefs. And we suggested and had Otumfo leading it. But I also made sure I spoke to the Yana, I spoke to the Yebunra, who were also doing behind the scenes. So they can try, led by the chiefs, but politically we should take ourselves out and then do the background work and give information and how to go about it in the background.
I'm still staying with you because you've done a lot of work on this. What should be the...
And I almost succeeded. Unfortunately, somehow Abagri found himself in Bawku, and that erupted before we left office. Very sad, very, very sad. That would have been my most key achievements at the ministry. I did it. When I look back, I just don't know what happened just before the election, and the gentleman found himself in Bawku.
So what should be the first thing to do now?
As I said, the appointment is important. You need a courageous, non-native, truthful, honest guy who would be honest with both sides and tell them in the face the truth. On air, I can't tell you some of them the truth I said, and maybe at some point you get to know when I put pen to paper or I talk to them if somebody approaches me. There are certain basics that must be told, and everybody must know their limit in the conflict. So you need a bold, honest character to lead the region, and have access to both policies. The person must have access to both policies, because when there are two sides to this issue, if you don't have somebody with both access, you can't have a leeway. But the person must not be the lead who solves it. It is the chiefs. The chiefs themselves must find a bold solutions and tell in the face who is wrong, who is right. That's my advice. I'm
grateful to you. Stephen Asamoah Boateng is former chieftaincy minister. And you also heard earlier Professor Vladimir Nchudanso is Dean, Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College, and also an international relations expert. You also heard Dr. Victor Doke, he's a lecturer, Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. This has been Top Story, brought to you by Telecel and Holy Insecticide Spray and Coil. Up next,